They called me a broke old lady, but they never asked how I got that way. You're about to learn what happens when silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. I was quiet when they opened my mail, still when they moved my money, smiling when they planned to take care of me. They thought I'd lost everything, even my memory, but I remembered every single word. This is my story, and it's not what you think. Thank you for being here. Have you ever been underestimated so quietly, it almost felt like love? Before we continue, share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more quiet, powerful stories like this one, hit follow. Say something under this video, even just one word. Where are you watching from? What time is it? Can we please stop pretending she's not dead weight? The words slid across the table like a butter knife across cold toast, casual, blunt, and meant to slice. I sat there, spoon halfway to my mouth, oatmeal thickening into something inedible. My granddaughter giggled. My son didn't flinch. My daughter-in-law looked down at her phone, scrolling through something much more important than my presence. No one corrected him. No one even blinked. It was the kind of sentence that shouldn't be said out loud, the kind you whisper in frustration, then regret. But Mark, my firstborn, my boy with the soft cheeks and blue baby blanket, he said it like it was just a fact of life, like the sky was blue, like I had outlived my usefulness and now I was a rusted appliance no one could figure out how to unplug. I didn't say anything, not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. That was the worst part. The rest of breakfast droned on, clinking cutlery, the hiss of the coffee machine, Emma asking to be excused. I took my bowl to the sink, rinsed it slowly, and stared at the water spiraling into the drain. Dead weight. Maybe they thought I couldn't hear. Maybe they knew I could. Neither explanation helped. By 10:17, I was alone in the house again. The silence settled around me like old smoke, stale, unwelcoming. I poured the last of the coffee into a chipped mug with faded sunflowers and sat by the window. Outside, a squirrel was burying something in the flower bed. I watched it work. Dig, bury, pat. Efficient, intentional, invisible. I pressed a finger against the glass, leaving a faint print. It disappeared as quickly as the thought that formed in my head. It wasn't always like this. I used to be the one who packed the lunches, kissed the scraped knees, ran from work to soccer games, helped with homework, ironed shirts at midnight. I used to matter. But motherhood fades like wallpaper. People stop seeing it, and eventually they stop seeing you. That evening, while everyone was at the mall, I went into the garage. I knew what I was looking for, even if I didn't admit it to myself. The green box, dented on the corner, smelled faintly of mothballs and cinnamon. Inside, under layers of receipts, birthday cards, and a yellowed copy of Little Women, there it was. The envelope, from Merritt and Hall Trust and Investments, addressed to me, handwritten. I hadn't opened it when it came last year. It arrived a week after my brother passed, Leonard, my only sibling, my secret keeper. I couldn't bear to see his name in ink printed on business letterhead. But now my hands trembled as I peeled it open. Dear Mrs. Eleanor Glass, per the wishes of Leonard Glass, enclosed you will find preliminary instructions regarding the handling of his private estate and legacy account. You are the sole listed beneficiary under Merritt and Hall Trust. Confidentiality is imperative. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience. I blinked. Once, twice. Sole beneficiary. Legacy account. I looked up as if someone was watching me, but the room was still, silent. The air felt different, like something had shifted, or ended, or maybe begun. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in the book. Little Women, of course, between Joe and Beth. Then I returned the box to the garage, carefully. At dinner, I was quiet. They didn't notice. They talked about sales, screen time limits, new diets. My plate stayed mostly full. I smiled once. when Emma offered me the last piece of cornbread. After they went to bed, I walked to the window again. That squirrel had come back. It was digging again, in the same spot. Unburying, maybe. Funny. Funny how some things know exactly where they hid their power. "You're still alive?" That was the receptionist's first reaction when I called the number. Not "good morning." Not "thank you for calling Merritt and Hall." Just that, like I'd been presumed buried with the rest of the estate. I didn't take it personally. I didn't take anything personally anymore. It saves time. The woman cleared her throat and recovered. "Sorry, Mrs. Glass. It's just, no one expected this call." The trust file was flagged as inactive. "Inactive?" I asked, my voice level. "Why?" There was silence on the line. A few clicks. Then, "There was no confirmation of receipt from your end, and no activity. No legal claims filed. We assumed forfeiture." Of course. That's what I had done. I had forfeited. 1,000,000 silent decisions, one after another. That's how women like me disappear. Not in one big moment, but in tiny, invisible ones. I made an appointment. Tuesday noon, downtown, 12th floor. They still had Leonard's initials on the plaque, LG Private Legacy. He was always dramatic like that. Thought Leonard Glass sounded like a stage name. Thought he was immortal. In a way, he might have been. When I hung up, my fingers were still on the phone. The silence after the call felt thick, like steam in a closed bathroom. I turned slowly. My daughter-in-law, Melissa, stood in the kitchen, not moving, not speaking. I smiled at her. "Morning." She smiled back, too brightly. "Everything okay?" "Oh, yes," I said. "Just confirming a dentist." She nodded too quickly. Left the room. That afternoon, I went through my closet, not looking for anything in particular, just remembering. Touching fabric like it might still remember who I used to be. Silk, denim, linen, all faded, all worn thin. Like me. Behind the coats, I found a tin box. Inside, a stack of old photos. Me and Leonard in black and white grinning on a fishing dock. One where he's wearing Mom's apron pretending to make stew. And one, the last one, from the year before he died. Just his hand holding mine. I didn't cry. Tears are for the first wound. This was just the scar. Tuesday came. I wore navy, simple earrings. Took the train to downtown, like I used to when I had somewhere to be. The elevator to the 12th floor opened with a soft ding. Inside, glass walls, polished floors, and the smell of new money pretending to be old. A man met me at reception. Crisp suit, younger than my son, older than his manners. "Mrs. Glass," he said, "we weren't sure you'd come." I wasn't either. He led me to a room with no windows, a silver briefcase on the table, a single key beside it. "Mr. Glass requested privacy," he began. "No public filings. The estate is held in a private legacy trust, designed to activate only upon confirmed interest by the beneficiary. That is, you." I didn't respond. He opened the case. Neatly arranged documents, a USB, a small envelope. "This is everything," he said, "including a video, his last message." He pushed the envelope toward me. "Do not open until you leave." I took everything. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need to. I knew my brother. If he wanted me to know something, he'd make sure I would. Outside, the city buzzed. Horns, wind, strangers colliding like bumper cars. But I stood still on the sidewalk, bag in one hand, envelope in the other. Then I saw it, across the street. Melissa, in her car, parked, watching. Grandma's not stupid, she's just slow. I heard it clear as day. Emma said it behind my back in the cereal aisle while tugging at a box of frosted something. Her voice was light, like it wasn't meant to land anywhere heavy. But it did. I didn't turn. Just stood still in front of the shelf, letting my fingers rest on a jar of peach preserves I had no intention of buying. Behind me, Melissa hushed her, then laughed. Well, sometimes slow is just another word for out of touch. When we got home, I carried the groceries up alone. My legs ached. My hands trembled, not from weakness, but from restraint. In my room, I locked the door, for the first time in months. The briefcase from Merritt and Hall sat under my bed, untouched since Tuesday, but now I pulled it out and slid the USB into my old laptop. Password protected. Of course. I tried the obvious, my name, his name, our childhood address. Nothing. I sipped lukewarm tea and stared at the screen. What would Leonard have chosen? Joe and Beth. It opened. He always teased me about reading Little Women every year like it was gospel. I'd read Joe's lines aloud to him when we were kids, and he'd roll his eyes. But he listened. Inside the folder, one video, titled simply, "If You're Watching This, Elle." The screen flickered. His face, older than I remembered, but smiling. "Hey, kid," he said, "if you're seeing this, you finally opened the damn letter." Pause. You waited too long, but that's okay. You always liked your answers quiet. He leaned forward. "I couldn't trust them, Elle. You know who I mean. I've seen what they did to you, heard what they said when you weren't listening, and you just took it. Like always." My hand tightened around the mug. I didn't blink. Leonard went on. "You gave them your years. They gave you disrespect. So here's what I'm giving you." A pause. A smirk. Power. The video continued. Instructions, codes, account names, names of people to avoid, files to verify. It wasn't just money. It was ammunition. And then, just before it ended, his eyes softened. "You were never dead weight. You just let too many people carry their cruelty like it belonged to you." The screen faded to black. Downstairs, someone laughed. Loudly. Probably Mark. Probably some joke about how I couldn't work the TV remote. I didn't care. I printed out the ledger from the trust folder. Multiple accounts. Holdings. A line item for Phase 2 transfer authorization. Whatever that meant. It was mine now. I slipped it all into a folder marked tax stuff. No one in this house would ever look inside that. At dinner, I asked Melissa to pass the salt. She looked up, startled. "Oh, sure." Mark mentioned a new investment he was considering. Something about flipping houses in Florida. He laughed and said, "Maybe we'll move you down there when you get more fragile, Mom." I smiled. Sounds sunny. I looked at Emma. She looked away. Then I said softly, "You know what I miss?" They all paused. Being underestimated. We're just thinking ahead, that's all. That's how Melissa said it. Smiling, calm, almost reasonable. She laid the papers on the kitchen table like a picnic spread, casual, even friendly. My son stood behind her, arms crossed, silent. I looked at the top page. Advance Care Agreement, Cognitive Review, plus Financial Proxy Designation. Beneath that, in small italicized type, for seniors experiencing diminished independence. I felt nothing at first, just air moving through my throat like it didn't belong there. Then I looked up and asked, "What made you think I'd sign this?" Melissa chuckled, a little too brightly. "It's just a formality, Eleanor. Something all the professionals recommend these days." Mark cleared his throat. "It doesn't mean anything right now. It's for later. If something happens." I tapped the paper with one finger, slowly. "And who becomes the proxy?" Neither answered. I already knew. Her name was printed 5 lines down. Melissa Glass, Financial Proxy, Primary. Later that night, I went to the garage, closed the door behind me. I opened the small red notebook Leonard had tucked beneath the USB files, the one labeled Private Phase 2. Inside was a page of phone numbers, a map of names, a system. One name had a star beside it. James Burrows, Private Legal Consultant, Probate plus Elder Exploitation Defense. Underlined, Use only if they move early. They had moved early. The next day, I called James. He answered on the second ring. "I've been waiting for your call, Mrs. Glass." "You know why I'm calling?" "Yes," he said. "Leonard briefed me 2 years ago. He thought this might happen." "Did he also think they'd try to make me legally incompetent?" "No," James said calmly. "He thought they'd wait until you were easier to silence. Looks like they got impatient." We met in a church basement on the east side of town. Neutral ground, no security cameras. James was tall, soft-spoken, and carried a laptop with more secrets than my whole family combined. He reviewed the trust files, the inheritance clause, the medical records they were trying to submit. "This isn't just preemptive care," he said. "It's a coordinated move to strip you of your agency. If they file this petition, they could block any financial decision you try to make, even with the trust." "Can they win?" "Only if you play by their script." I didn't answer. He closed the laptop and looked at me. "What do you want to do, Eleanor?" I thought about that for a long time, not just what I could do, but what I wanted. Then I said, "I want to see what people really do when they think you're too old to matter." James nodded. "Then it starts now." He slid a small folder across the table. Inside, a power of attorney form, but one I could revoke any time. Bank instructions. A statement of mental competency signed by a licensed geriatric psychologist Leonard had arranged in advance. Dated 18 months ago. A little insurance policy. My hands didn't tremble when I signed. That night, I came home to find Emma sitting at the dining table, scribbling in a notebook. "Homework?" She nodded. "Family tree." "Sounds important." She looked up at me. "Do you feel old, Grandma?" I smiled gently. "Sometimes." "Do you feel useless?" My smile faded. I pulled out a chair, sat beside her, looked at the paper. My name wasn't on it. "You forgot me," I said, almost kindly. Emma's cheeks flushed. "I didn't mean to." I nodded. "That's what forgetting always sounds like." There was no will. That's what the official letter from the county probate office said. I read it 3 times. Same phrase each time. No last will and testament submitted to the court for Leonard Glass. I folded the paper, tucked it into a manila envelope, and placed it next to the thick stack James had given me. Because of course there wasn't a will, not a public one. Leonard never trusted courts. He said probate was where families pretended to mourn while fighting over what wasn't theirs. He didn't want a legacy trapped in the jaws of people who thought sentiment could be notarized. So instead, he left me keys, codes, and one file titled, "Do not view until you know what they did." It sat on the USB like a loaded weapon. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I watched. They had gotten careful lately. Melissa and Mark. Whispered tones, locked drawers, disappearing paperwork. I noticed my mail started arriving already opened. The trash was always pre-sorted. They weren't just managing me. They were monitoring me. So I adapted. I played my role. I forgot my doctor's appointment. I confused my medications. I left the oven on just long enough to be scolded, not dangerous. It was surprisingly easy to seem invisible when people already wanted you to be. Then came the Thursday night slip-up. I walked into the living room unannounced and caught Mark mid-sentence on the phone. "She won't know. Trust me. She still thinks Leonard died broke." A pause. "No, she didn't even open the trust envelope. I checked." I stood there, still. He turned, saw me, and smiled. So naturally, it made me sick. "Hey, Ma, just talking to the insurance guy. You need anything?" I shook my head. Just passing through. That night I opened the file. The screen flickered. Leonard's face appeared again, but this time, tired. More serious. "If you're watching this, it means you found the truth. They tried to erase you." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "So here's mine." What followed wasn't a speech. It was a confession. "I never told you what happened after I sold the Oregon property. You thought I donated it. I didn't. I held it in offshore accounts under the trust because I knew eventually they'd try to hollow you out. You're not just the beneficiary, Elle. You're the executor. My mouth went dry. Everything's in your name. They can't touch $1 unless you authorize it, unless you validate them. I sat back in my chair. I wasn't just the end of Leonard's story. I was the firewall between his name and their greed. By the end of the video, he had laid out everything. Passwords, financial trails, legacy letters for institutions, and, most shocking of all, a Phase 2 file marked, to be sent to all family members only if Eleanor is declared mentally unfit. It was a bomb, and it had a timer. I closed the laptop and stared at the wall where an old family photo hung. Me, Leonard, Mark, Emma, as a toddler. Melissa smiling just a little too hard. They had no idea what was coming. Don't trust Aunt Mel. The note was scribbled in blocky, uneven handwriting. It was tucked into the back of my crossword book, one I kept beside the couch. Only one person in this house would have touched it. Emma. I looked at the little square of paper again. She'd folded it once. No signature. Just that one sentence. Just enough to say, I see it too. And that made everything sharper. I started taking notes. Not in a diary. Not on a computer. On paper. Quiet paper. Pages that couldn't be hacked or accidentally wiped. I kept them folded, tucked into recipe books no one touched. The ones with food stains and titles like Gelatin Magic. I recorded dates of strange mail, what was missing from drawers, conversations I overheard behind doors that were never quite closed. I even kept track of how often Melissa filled my pillbox for me and how often something seemed off. One night, I caught Mark in my room. He didn't see me right away. He was bent over my nightstand, flipping through drawers like he had every right. When he turned and noticed me in the doorway, he flinched, only slightly, then smiled like I was the one intruding. Hey, Ma, just looking for the checkbook. Thought maybe you moved it. I don't write checks anymore, I said softly. Right, he chuckled. That's probably smart. I watched him leave without blinking. Later that night, I moved every document to a new hiding spot. The vents, wrapped in freezer bags, taped inside old Christmas tins in the attic, even behind the dryer. I had learned something dangerous. When people think you're feeble, they stop hiding their crimes. I met with James again, but this time I didn't take the bus. I borrowed Melissa's car. I told her I needed it for a church group potluck. She didn't ask questions. Just tossed me the keys like I was her live-in nanny. James reviewed the folder I'd assembled. He whistled under his breath. This is enough to challenge anything they try to file. I didn't smile. They're not filing anything yet, I said. They're watching. Waiting. I want to know what they'll do when I give them a reason to move. James leaned back in his chair. You planning to provoke them? No, I said. I'm planning to lose. That night, I forgot to close the fridge, left a burner on, asked Emma the same question twice. By morning, Melissa had called Mark into a private meeting. I heard my name 4 times behind the door. I heard the word facility. I heard sooner rather than later. I wrote it all down. Then I tucked the note into a cookbook with a broken spine and an old grocery list scrawled in Leonard's handwriting on the inside cover. Before bed, Emma came into my room. She didn't say anything. She just walked over to the nightstand, adjusted my lamp, and set a stuffed bear down beside it. It was mine when I was little, she said. I looked at her. Really looked. You see more than they think you do. Emma shrugged. You hide more than they think you do. I didn't answer, but I reached over, took her hand, and pressed something into it. The crossword book. She's slipping faster than we thought. Melissa's voice drifted from the hallway like perfume, light, sweet, and meant to linger. I sat on the couch, pretending to doze, my robe askew, one slipper dangling off. A mug of tea, lukewarm, untouched, sat by my hand. Mark nodded. We need to speed things up. If she signs anything now, no one's going to question it. James is drawing up the care petition, Melissa whispered. Once that's filed... The floor creaked under their weight. I let my mouth go slack. They stopped speaking. I snored. They left. Later that day, I sat in my room with an old mirror, rehearsing confusion. Tilted head, delayed response, gentle frown. I practiced until I made myself nauseous. Then I sat at the kitchen table and asked Melissa how to spell Wednesday. 3 times. She was giddy. By Friday, they'd booked an appointment for me. Just a wellness screening, Melissa said too brightly. Routine stuff. Mark chimed in. Nothing scary, just a little memory check, Ma. I nodded slowly. Will they give me cookies? Melissa laughed, relieved. Sure, if you ask nice. They didn't notice my hands under the table. Steady, deliberate. Slipping a voice recorder into my sweater pocket. The doctor was polite. Young. Smelled like lavender and ambition. He asked questions designed to trap. I let myself fall in. What year is it? 1990 something? Who's the president? I miss Roosevelt. He smiled sympathetically. Took notes. I signed the clipboard with a trembling hand. Left-handed. I'm right-handed. Back home, Melissa poured me tea and hummed. Emma watched me from the hallway. Her eyes said, I know what you're doing. I blinked slowly once. She disappeared back into her room. That evening, I opened the old tin from Leonard's files, the one labeled Revocation Form 36A. Inside, a fresh deed transfer, signed, stamped, dated yesterday, by me. It gave full authority over Leonard's remaining physical estate to a new recipient. Not Melissa, not Mark, not even me. Just a name. In care of Evergreen Foundation for Women, 60+. A trust within a trust. One Leonard had created in secret. For when they try to erase you, it would activate the moment I was declared mentally unfit. And since they were trying so hard to make that happen, well, let them win. I slid the documents into an envelope and mailed them from the old post office 2 towns over. No return address. 2 days later, I found a letter on my pillow. Typed. No signature. You signed away your rights. You'll be sorry. I folded it in half, then in half again, then dropped it in the fireplace. The flames crackled like applause. You just need to keep her happy until the papers go through. That was Melissa's voice, not whispering this time, confident, triumphant. I suppose when you think you've won, you stop checking your volume. The audio came through my laptop speakers in perfect clarity. James had cleaned up the recording from my wellness visit and boosted the sound from the hallway mic. My sweater had caught everything, every sentence, every ugly little plan. She and Mark were standing 10 feet away from me in our own house, talking like I was already a memory. After we file for guardianship, Mark said, we liquidate the rest. She's got bonds somewhere. Leonard moved his money. I can feel it. Melissa snorted. She doesn't even know what bonds are. She thinks online banking is a scam. She'll forget she signed anything, Mark replied. I hope so, she said, because she just signed herself out of her own life. Click. End of recording. I stared at the laptop, not blinking, not breathing. It didn't hurt. Not really. Not anymore. It just confirmed what Leonard had already known, what I had refused to see until now. The next day, I baked a pie. Apple. Too sweet. Too much cinnamon. I burned the crust on purpose. Melissa took a bite anyway and smiled like she wasn't chewing gravel. You've still got it, she lied. I smiled back. I thought I'd give something to the nice realtor who called yesterday, I said lightly. She said she was stopping by today. Melissa's smile twitched. Realtor? Oh, didn't I tell you? I'm thinking of selling Leonard's cabin, the one near the lake. Melissa blinked. I thought that was under trust status? It is, I said. But apparently I'm still the executor. Isn't that wild? At 3 p.m. sharp, the realtor arrived. She was young, wore red lipstick, and carried a clipboard like a weapon. Her name wasn't really Jenna. She wasn't really a realtor. She was an investigator James had hired, licensed, wired, and briefed. She shook Melissa's hand, chatted casually about comps, estate taxes, sale timing, invited her to sit down and brainstorm scenarios. Melissa, of course, couldn't resist. She poured herself wine and started talking. Too fast, too confident. She outlined their plan, the legal guardianship filing, the timeline for transferring the cabin, convincing the old woman it was her idea. All of it, on tape. By the time Jenna left, we had an hour of audio. Melissa looked drunk on victory. She turned to me, finally, and smiled. "You don't have to worry about a thing, Eleanor. We're handling everything." I blinked slowly. "Thank you, dear." She left the room. I opened my laptop, uploaded the audio, sent it directly to James with one subject line: now. The next morning I received a text: "Move your essentials. Today, we strike tomorrow." JB, I packed in silence. Not much, just the things that mattered. Leonard's photo, my red scarf, the notebook from Emma. I left my wedding ring behind. Let them fight over that. At sunset, I walked to the mailbox and found a card inside. No envelope, just a single postcard. A photo of a cabin by a lake. On the back, "The world won't know you're gone, but they'll feel it." No signature, just Leonard's initials. LG. She's gone. Melissa's voice cracked. Not from grief, from confusion. Maybe panic. Mark was already rifling through drawers like I'd hidden under the cutlery tray. Her phone's here, her purse, but she's not in the house. Emma stood in the doorway, silent, hugging that old stuffed bear I gave her. Her eyes didn't move. I watched all of it. From across the street. Technically, I hadn't run. I'd drifted. At 4:47 a.m., I stepped out the back door with one bag, one envelope, and a prepaid flip phone. I walked 2 blocks to the corner where a sedan was waiting. James drove. He didn't speak. I didn't need him to. By sunrise, I was 3 counties away. By nightfall, invisible. They didn't know it yet, but the moment I left, a trigger activated. James filed an injunction at 8 a.m. sharp, citing attempted exploitation, evidence of coercion, and a pending elder protection order. He also filed a motion with the probate court to freeze all financial actions involving my name or Leonard's trust. Pending investigation. The locks clicked shut before they even found the note. They'd find it in the fridge. I left it under the butter dish. Melissa always missed the obvious. "Dear family, you called me a burden, a ghost, an inconvenience. So I decided to act accordingly. I disappeared. But please know, ghosts tend to leave footprints. E." At noon, the first journalist called James. The story was already spreading. "Elder woman disappears day before court filing." They called it suspicious. By 3 the headline read, "Inheritance War, did family try to silence elderly beneficiary?" James didn't confirm anything. He just said, "We're cooperating fully." I sipped tea in a cabin surrounded by pine trees. The lake was quiet. Nobody yelling. Nobody watching. For the first time in years, I wasn't being handled. That evening, I powered on the flip phone. One message from Emma. "I told them you were smarter than they thought." Underneath, a photo. My crossword book. Open to a new puzzle. Clue number 1. What they called you. Answer. BROKE. Clue number 2. What you became. I smiled. Didn't even need to fill it in. She didn't just leave. She executed a plan. That's what the journalist said on the morning broadcast. Her name was Lacey Ford, national affiliate, calm voice, clean blazer, a face America trusts. Behind her, photos of me, young and old, Leonard, a cabin, a courthouse, and the headline, "The Glass Disappearance, Mystery, Money, and a Woman Who Refused to Vanish Quietly." Melissa turned off the TV. "That's slander," she hissed. Mark was already on the phone. "How did they get her trust files? Who leaked those recordings?" The answer, of course, was me. It started when James sent the recordings, the ones of Melissa and Mark, directly to Lacey Ford, along with a dossier of notarized statements, time-stamped documents, and the psychiatric exam Leonard commissioned 2 years ago. Everything was legal. Everything was timed, even the leak. Meanwhile, I stayed put. The cabin was sparse but clean. No internet, just radio. I made tea on the stove. I sat on the porch and watched the trees move like they had secrets. I let the world spin without me for a while. Until the letter came. No return address, no handwriting. Just a single printed sheet, Mrs. Glass. "We believe you may be the target of an intentional financial coercion campaign, previously masked as a care initiative. Your response has become a case study for elder rights. We'd like to invite you to speak, anonymously or not. The stage is yours. The Voice Project, National Network for Protected Elders." I folded the letter. Not ready. Not yet. But maybe. Soon. That night, I opened the final folder Leonard left me, the one marked Glass Plan Phase 3. It contained a list of legacy donation triggers, a sealed copy of the second trust, a letter addressed to Emma, and one final page. If they come after you, let them come. If they try to win, let them try. But when they think you've lost, open the last file. It was locked, USB protected, password prompt blinking. I knew what it was asking me. "What did they call you?" I typed. "Broke old lady." The screen flashed once. Opened. Inside, a video from Leonard. Not a message, a will. I, Leonard Joseph Glass, being of sound mind and heavy disappointment, declare this my personal directive. He didn't hold back. He named every person who would not receive a dime, with reasons. He described in detail the attempts at manipulation he had documented. He even named the reporter who'd receive the footage if the family filed anything after Eleanor disappeared, which of course they had. Back in the city, Melissa's voice cracked again, this time in court. Mark pleaded confusion. The judge froze their access to all joint accounts, pending federal review. But the best part? The tax audit. Turns out Leonard had included a note to the IRS, too. I didn't laugh, but I did smile. Just a little. They sealed it. She sealed them out. That was the line Lacey Ford opened with on the evening news. This time, it wasn't just speculation. It was documentation. On screen, grainy PDFs of trust agreements, beneficiary clauses, and a signature dated 6 months before Leonard's death. At the top of the page, the Merit Silence Trust for Displaced Women over 60 facing familial exploitation. I didn't name it. Leonard did. He used to say the silence of older women was the quiet society had trained itself not to hear. Now it was screaming. The total assets, $4.8 million. It triggered automatically the moment I waived my right to private inheritance litigation. Not to lose, to redirect. Mark sued. Of course he did. Melissa joined. Naturally. But the money was already moving, passed through a mesh of vetted foundations, grants, and non-profits serving elderly women evicted or abandoned by family, women who had been called a burden, women who had been cared for until their names no longer appeared on deeds, women like me. Only now. I wasn't one of them. I was the one who saved them. In the segment, Lacey read aloud from a letter they'd received from my attorney. "You called me broke. I called myself broken. But now I see I was simply buried under the weight of your convenience. This trust is not revenge. It's repair. And I'm not coming back." That night, I received a letter. Plain envelope, no return address, postmarked from the city. One line handwritten in dark ink. "I was wrong. You deserved better. Please come home. We miss you." No signature, but I recognized the handwriting. I folded the note and placed it in a drawer. because it wasn't written to me. It was written to the absence I left behind. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A message from the Voice Project. Your case has already helped change 3 policies. Would you consider helping us build something permanent? I didn't reply right away. I walked to the closet, pulled out the old box where I kept my so-called lost things, and I added one more, my name, no longer needing proof. She didn't disappear, she detonated. That was the headline on the Washington Ledger's Sunday edition. Below it, a photo of me, blurry and zoomed in, from a street camera weeks ago, leaving the courthouse with James. Beside the photo, a quote. They thought she was too quiet to matter. Turns out she was just quiet enough to finish planning. The Voice Project had done it. They released my journals. Not the full ones, not the ones with coffee stains and bitter sarcasm, but the curated entries James and I agreed to share. The ones that told the story the world didn't realize it had ignored for too long. Excerpts appeared in every major outlet. How they planned to move me out of my home, how they fed me false medications, how I listened and remembered and waited. I didn't cry when I read the coverage, but I did sit in the dark for a long time. Melissa and Mark became national. Not in the way they wanted. The media called them case studies in coercion, poster children for weaponized elder care. They lawyered up fast, then they vanished from public view. Their bank accounts, of course, were already frozen. Even Emma moved out. She was staying with a friend's family in the city. She texted me a photo of her new room, tiny, bright, full of color. At the bottom of the message, they still don't get it. I'm not staying for them. I'm staying to remember you right. A month later, James called. We've received 5 offers for books, 3 for a documentary, and 1 request from a senator's office to help write elder protection legislation. Which senator? Does it matter? No, I said. None of them remember me anyway. He laughed. They will now. That evening, I recorded a short video. No makeup, no lighting team. Just my phone, propped up on a mug. I read one of the shorter entries. Day 19. They opened my mail again. It was a bank statement. I wasn't supposed to see it. I asked about it at dinner. They said I was tired. I told them I was. But tired doesn't mean stupid. The video was less than a minute. By morning, it had 3.2 million views. Somewhere in the city, a woman named Carla watched that video from her kitchen table. Her son had just called her confused again. Somewhere in Vermont, a woman named Doris printed the transcript and slid it under her lawyer's door. Somewhere in Arizona, a woman named Leona packed her bags in silence and finally left the daughter who never saw her as anything but a bill. My story was no longer mine. It belonged to all of them now, and I was okay with that. It's so quiet now. That was the first sentence I wrote in my notebook after everything stopped moving. No lawsuits, no headlines, no knocks on the door. Just wind, just water, just me. The cabin had become a kind of chapel. Wooden floors, soft light, and silence thick enough to sit inside of. I'd started boiling tea twice a day just to hear something. I used to think peace would feel like relief, like exhaling after holding my breath too long, but it felt more like floating, unanchored, untouched, and a little cold. Some nights, I'd catch myself talking aloud, just a word or two, like, or, that cloud looks like a spoon. And once, embarrassingly, I hope no one's watching. Old habits, I suppose, filling silence like it's a sink that won't stop dripping. But no one was watching. Not anymore. The porch creaked differently in the afternoon. The chair beside mine stayed empty. I still made 2 cups of tea, sometimes, for Leonard, or maybe for the version of me that used to sit waiting to be remembered. I'd sip mine, let the other go cold. That felt like ritual, not sadness, not really. One day, I found the envelope Leonard had written to Emma. I'd been waiting, holding on to it like it might vanish if I opened it too soon. But the time had come. Inside, just a card. Dear Ems, you're braver than you'll admit, and smarter than they let you be. Take care of her when I'm gone. Then let her take care of herself. Uncle L, I cried for the first time in months, not from grief, from permission. That night I cleaned out the kitchen cabinets, burned some of the older notes, saved others. I boxed up the bear Emma gave me with a letter of my own tucked inside. Addressed to her, handwritten, "You didn't save me. You reminded me that I could save myself. If that's all I ever gave you, it's enough. Love always, Grandma Eleanor." At dawn, I stood by the lake. The surface was still. I saw myself in it, a shape that had grown edges again. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the past to catch up with me. I wasn't sure if I should knock. Her voice startled me. I was sitting on the porch, a book in my lap, the tea still warm in my hands. Emma stood at the edge of the steps, same backpack, same quiet defiance in her shoulders, but taller now, and not just in inches. I stood slowly. "You came a long way," I said. She didn't smile. Not yet. "You didn't answer my texts." I didn't have the right words. "That never stopped you before." I nodded. "True, I just said the wrong ones back then." We sat without speaking for a while. She looked around, taking in the trees, the chipped paint, the quiet lake. Then softly, "They're gone. Moved out last month. Everything's in storage. They said they needed a reset." Did they reset their memory too? Emma gave a thin, tired smile. "They're pretending it never happened." "And you?" "I'm trying not to." She reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in a scarf, handed it to me. Inside, my old crossword book, worn, filled in. "I kept doing them," she said. "I even made one. Back page." I turned to it. Across, 1. What they called you, again, BROKE, 5. What you proved, LOUD, down. 1. What you became when they stopped listening, UNSTOPPABLE. I laughed, quietly, but deeply. It caught in my throat like wind. "Did you ever think," she said, "that maybe all of this happened so someone would listen?" I looked at her. Really looked. "I think I hoped," I whispered, "that someone like you would be the one who finally did." That night, she stayed. We made soup. She asked questions I didn't answer. I asked questions she didn't expect. We left the dishes in the sink. In the morning, she was still there, hair a mess, wrapped in my spare blanket, asleep on the porch swing. She looked like Leonard when he was young, stubborn, curious, tired of the world's laziness. I made tea, 2 cups, one for her, one for me, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out a blank notebook and started writing again. They called me broke. That's how it started. Every article, every podcast, every debate panel, the phrase became a catchline, a rallying cry, a meme. But they never heard how it felt when they said it to my face, not until now. I agreed to do one interview, just one. They offered fancy studios, bright lights, hair and makeup. I asked for a bench, a quiet lake, a microphone and nothing else. The interviewer was kind, too kind. She spoke to me like I was made of paper. I let her. Then I looked into the camera and said what I had never dared say before. They called me broke. Because I didn't have what they wanted. Because I had no money they could count, no usefulness they could monetize, no fight left that they could fear. They called me old, which is just a different way of saying your time is no longer convenient to us. They called me forgetful, but I remembered every cruelty, every whisper, every door that didn't quite shut all the way. They called me fragile, but it turns out the only thing more dangerous than a woman who's angry is a woman who's underestimated. I wasn't broke. I was quiet, and now I'm not. The video was watched over 40 million times, but I never read the comments. I didn't need to. The truth didn't require applause, just witnesses. Months passed. The trust kept growing, not just in dollars, but in reach. Emma helped me design a grant for young women protecting their grandmothers. We called it Phase 4. Leonard would have hated the name and loved the mission. Sometimes I still hear them in my head. Mark, Melissa, dead weight, confused, slow, in the way. Their voices echo like old wallpaper, too faded to see and too ugly to forget. But I don't hate them anymore. They showed me something I needed to learn. They showed me who I'd become. So if you're watching this, or reading this, or hearing about some old woman who disappeared and turned her silence into a storm, just remember, they called me broke, but I was always rich in ways they couldn't steal. And now, I am gone. If you're still with me and this story meant something to you, subscribe. There's more to come.